We've made some exciting updates to the podcast, and I'm going to tell you about it right now. You're listening to the PHEC podcast, episode 383. The field of public health is so broad, overlapping multiple industries. With epidemiology at the core of public health, there are an unlimited number of ways to target specific populations, health conditions, environmental issues, and causes that matter most to you. My name is Dr. Huntley, and I'm the host here on the Public Health Epidemiology Conversations podcast. I'm an epidemiologist, consultant, and entrepreneur with over 20 years of experience in healthcare and public health. On this podcast, my guests and I engage in conversations that demonstrate the importance of public health and epidemiology across a variety of industries, helping you think outside the box and inspire greater positive impact in communities around the world. Now, let's dive into the topic of this brand new episode. Greetings, everyone, and thank you for joining me on this episode. As we are continuing to wrap up the year and preparing for 2025, there are so many things that are coming up that I'm excited about. And if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you know that at the end of the year, we do a lot. We make our changes and we roll out whatever it is that's going to be new. I like announcing it and sharing it with you and giving you a heads up on what's happening with the podcast. So that's what this episode is going to be a little bit about. So the previous episode, we talked about, we wanted to get your feedback, and hopefully you participated in our questionnaire, our simple 4-question survey. I'm really excited to see what those results are like. So we record this in advance. And so there's a little bit of a lag here. I'm recording it. It's going to be released. By the time you hear this, I will already have read whatever the feedback is provided, to us the week before. But if you go back to the previous episode, if you didn't hear that one, and if you want to be able to participate, be a part of what's coming up, then please go back and listen, because if you happen to be in this window when it's still available, we really want to hear from you, as many of you as possible. We're investing in a very big way into the podcast going into next year, because frankly, I miss the community that we had once upon a time. And if you were listening for a while, you may have been a part of some of our early communities. We're doing something a little different, but I definitely want to bring it back. I've been thinking about what to do and how to do it and had some ideas, and it's really time. So I'm excited to see your feedback and your responses. So make sure that you participate in that. Only a few questions. I promise it only takes a couple of minutes at the most for you to submit your responses. And I really want to hear from you. On this episode, I want to share with you something else as well. So it's a little something new that we're putting into place. It's designed to help make everything a little easier for you to access. We now, this is episode 383. So it's a lot of episodes, a lot of content over a lot of years. So we are trying to make it easy for you to find everything or find what you're looking for by putting together some categories. And not just categories, but we're also creating playlists. So we'll have a Spotify playlist for the same categories that I'm about to explain to you. And this is going to be great for, it doesn't matter whether you've been listening for a long time or you've just stumbled onto the podcast. It, I think, is going to be helpful in just knowing where to start, and even also makes it easier for you to share it with someone. If you want to share the podcast and you're telling someone this is a great podcast, you can share the link to the playlist. I know I have a lot of professors who recommend our episodes, or sometimes they're required material, listening material for their students. Well, this makes it easier for you to even sort through and decide what to share and where to pull and select, the type of episodes that you want to share. So I want to explain these categories. So I'm recording this video. So if you're listening, I may sound like I'm a little disorganized here, but it's just because I'm moving my screens around so that I can pull up our website. And I want to talk about the changes because they're visible on our website right now. So of course, by the time you get this episode, when you go to PHEC podcast, which I direct you to all the time for the show notes, now I'm looking at it so I can describe it as, what it looks like. So when you go to PHEC podcast, there's a little introduction at the top and then links to some of Spotify and Apple Podcasts and so forth. And then when you scroll down to where the episodes are listed, and where you would click on the episode to go to the show notes. If you pause and look just above the list of all the episodes and just under, the heading says podcast episodes, there is now a list of categories. So there's a new menu there. It says all posts. And then the first category, which has been there for a while, is tribal epidemiology centers. You may or may not have even noticed it because it was just by itself for a while. But now we also have Journey Junction, roundtable discussions, and impactful perspectives. Now, to the far right of that menu bar is a little search icon. So you can also, that's where you can click and search for episodes. Now, they're searchable by title. So you have to have at least the person's name that you're looking for in terms of the guest or some aspect of that to search for titles, not content of the episodes. But that's useful if you have some idea, partial name of the title, but you're trying to find an episode of, especially with a guest that we had. So anyway, the categories that are on our website that are new are Journey Junction, roundtable discussions, and impactful perspectives. Now, like I said, Tribal Epidemiology Centers has been there for a while. So if you click on that, all of the episodes that we recorded with the Tribal Epidemiology Centers are in one place now. And they also have their own podcast that we produced for them as a result. But we still have those original podcast episodes on our website in their own category. So I want to explain the categories. Journey Junction is the name that we came up with for the category of episodes where we have had, you notice this year especially, we've had guests that come on the podcast and I introduce them and I say, well, they were a previous guest on the episode back in a lot of cases before the pandemic. And so they give us their update and then we refer you back to, those previous episodes where we first, initially interviewed them. Well, those types of episodes where we've had a repeat guest, we've put them all in a category called Journey Junction. So here's a description we have for Journey Junction. Journey Junction is a PHEC podcast playlist that highlights returning guests who come back to our show to share their pivots, growth, and strides in their careers. And these episodes feature career path updates, emerging trends in their public health niche, insights into skills, opportunities, real-world case studies of how their work has contributed to public health, and so much more. And I think that's a real accurate description of these episodes. I think it's been so much fun for me to connect or reconnect, with our guests that have been on the podcast in the past. A lot of them I've kept up with, over the years anyway, just our paths have crossed. We've been in conferences or, worked together on projects or just been in touch in general. And then in some cases, I really hadn't talked to them in a while. So catching up has been really new. But in most cases, at least following on social media at the very least is what we've been able to keep up with. But it's been fun to hear where they are and how things have changed. And then also to go back to those earlier episodes and hear those and just how much is different. So all of those are in a category now called Journey Junction. And we will continue. Actually, we have a few more that we are hoping to get in touch with and hoping that the schedules will align so that we can continue to bring back certain guests. I think we'll just, on a rotating basis, continue to do this from time to time. But now they have their own category. This is especially great for students who are, I would say even young or early career professionals. People sometimes get this idea in their head that because like right now you have this moment of clarity in what you're doing, that this is what you're going to do forever and ever and ever. Amen. And you'll see that this is not the case. Of course, just by sheer nature of having to navigate a pandemic has changed so much with everyone's trajectories. But just the discovery path of doing something for a few years and what you learn and what you discover opens up other opportunities. And I think these episodes are really nice to hear, a great reminder that we don't have to have it all figured out and stick to it forever and ever, that we have to pivot and be flexible, and just life happens and things change. And if we are going to, really progress and to continue to grow, then we need to be flexible and ready to pivot when it's time, when it's necessary. So I love that category, Journey Junction. Another category is roundtable discussions. So you've heard us every month at the very beginning of the month, we repurpose the roundtable live that happens on LinkedIn. And this is with a panel of public health professionals who share their insights into a certain topic and how they are applying or having conversations about this topic with members of their community and how they're able to have the impacts that they're having in their communities by initiating or fostering these types of conversations or advocating or raising awareness of topics and issues. And these roundtable discussions, every single month I finish and I go, that was so good. Now that's my favorite, until I get to the next one. And then they just get better and better. And it's not just me. Everyone says this, they're really enjoying these roundtable discussions. So we bring that to the podcast a month later, and then we connect you to how you can join that conversation on LinkedIn, because it really never expires, but we provide that link to keep that conversation going, and also how to connect with the members on the panel. So the roundtable discussion is the second new category, which is also going to be a playlist on Spotify that you'll be able to, share with people, or just go straight to catching up on all the roundtable live discussions if that's what you'd like to do. And then finally, we have impactful perspectives. So this started out as a category. What I was hoping to do was have the episodes where I think my guests are, really thinking outside the box, where maybe the industries are overlapping, where it's public health and maybe something else that's a little different, but there's an overlap and there's a power at this intersection. So some of these conversations, and I put the category of impactful perspectives, because I think that's the best way to sum it up. It is showcasing these stories and insights from professionals, like I said, a variety of fields where it overlaps with public health. It features in-depth conversations, and these experts really have a diverse background and real significant impacts on their communities. So let me give you just a couple of examples. We had an episode with public health law and epidemiology, and that was one of the most fascinating. Of course, as an epidemiology, I'm going to say that, but it really is eye-opening to hear about something like law and epidemiology. And specifically, she advocates for tribal organizations. So it's a very super niche and very dynamic type of an overlap. And it was really exciting to hear and just to kind of discover through this conversation. Another example is, we have quite a few. We have a lot of industry examples with organizations that are just a little different. We have someone who is creating devices that make access to buildings, communities, everything more accessible for people who are hearing impaired and other types of impairments. So listening and talking to him, so it's innovation and public health and inclusivity and so many things that overlap with this conversation. And it's really refreshing. Let's see if I can find another one for you. There are so many. We've had some really great guests over time in these categories. Let's see. I'm glancing down here. We've got healthcare technology and public health. That was a great one. We've got social work, grant writing, and public health, anti-hunger activism and public health. It goes on. This is just, to me, I think of it as just those impactful intersections and overlaps that, just we maybe would not have thought of, but we look for these types of guests to bring onto the podcast. And we've had a lot of them. We just started this category with some of our relatively more recent, interviews. So the interviews, I think the oldest one is in the low 200s. But we have one that's 213, but the rest of them, it looks like they're all in the 300s. I think that's the only one in the 200s. So we just started with like the episodes that are in the 300s. So any episodes that are before that, you have to go digging around for them. We just started with the ones in 300. So we may eventually add to that, but I think we'll just keep going from here and grow out those categories. So again, the categories that we have that are also going to be Spotify playlists. So if you're listening to this episode and we have already accomplished this by now, then you'll be able to find it in the description for this episode. But I'm really going to direct you to the show notes page, because if it's not there at the time this episode is released, it will be added soon after. So by the first of the year, we'll have the Spotify playlist and links to these categories so that you can share them. You can listen yourself. And I think it's just something that will just add to what we're providing and offering, just to make it a little easier for you to digest the podcast, to make it more useful for you and make it easy for you to share, and make it easier for people who discover us. And we have almost 400 episodes and they're like, okay, this is just overwhelming, but it makes it a little easier for people to know where to dive in. So those categories are tribal epidemiology centers, Journey Junction, roundtable discussions, and impactful perspectives. So we're going to keep it right there and not, overdo it with adding categories. I think we can put our episodes in these categories. Not every podcast episode will go into a category. This is just a way to make some of these areas of topics stand out and easy to kind of get your hands on. So I'm excited to share that with you, and I hope you are excited about it as well. Just another thing that we're doing to refresh and add and invest into the podcast and to all of you to make this a better experience, an improved experience, and to get you excited again about the podcast. Not that you're not excited, but we want to grow in 2025. And this is one of the things that we can do to help make it easier for, like I said, all of you to share and for us to be able to grow. All right, everyone. Until next time, have a fantastic rest of your day. Thank you for listening to the Public Health Epidemiology Conversations podcast. Visit phecpodcast.com to find the show notes for each episode and to learn how to work with me.